Welcome to this episode. It's called Pandoc 101 and it's dedicated to my students, but perhaps you get inspired too by this little tool that is so mighty and powerful that converts everything from A to B and B to A. And yes, let's start right away. So, as you can see here, I have prepared some environment in order to work here. My aim is to show you how to convert a markdown document to a HTML document. This is what we're going to do, and in order to do so, I have prepared a markdown document, as you can see here. This markdown document stems from a very great lorem ipsum generator. It's called lorem markdownum. You see it here, and you can generate some markdown lorem ipsum with various features that you can switch off here in this head part. And this is where I took this from. So I switched back to this tab, and as you can see, there's some stuff inside. So, and this is in my favorite online editor. This one is called Pandoc. I will show you the link. I will put you the link in the show notes, and I definitely advise you to work with that one because it's so much fun to do this in class and with together with students. Well, what I'm going to do now is download this document. Of course, you can copy and paste it, but there's this feature here on the right-hand side where you can download the markdown document with a click here. And now I switch to this folder that I showed before, and you can see there it is. So what I'm going to show now is how to convert this document to an HTML file. This is what I do on the command line because Pandoc is a command line tool. That means that you have to type something here, Pandoc, and now you have to say, first of all, let's see where we are. So I just list the contents of this folder. It's called testdocument.md, what we see here. And you see it corresponds with this graphical user interface view of the test document. You see here the testdocument.md in another representation in this terminal. You can do the same thing. Well, I'm on a Linux computer here. You can do the same thing with the terminal on a Mac. And I advise you to use the git bash terminal on Windows because it gives you much more features in the future to deal, for example, with Git and GitHub and GitLab and stuff. So get familiar with that. It is like a little Linux on Windows and it works great. So it's called Git Bash and you get it on the download page where you can get Git. If you install this on Windows, go ahead with you go ahead with Git Bash and Git GUI at the same time. So I assume that you have opened up a terminal like this one here, and you can list the files in the folder that I'm already in here. So this is what we can see here. And now let's convert this one, Pandoc. And now we have to go with the source document, and we say -o-o test document HTML. And in order for you to see this a little bit better, I will make this a little bit bigger. And there you go. So this is what Pandoc does. It takes a source document and converts it to a target document, and it guesses the format of the target document by the extension you give it. So -o or -o says this is the output file that follows. Very simple command. Now let's see what we have. I make this a little bit smaller again. You can see we have the HTML document here in this folder, and I open it up in Chromium. There we go. Okay, this is what came out of it. So we had a markdown document, and we converted it with Pandoc to an HTML document. Well, let's look at the source code of the HTML document. I press Ctrl-U in this Chromium browser, and it opens up a new tab and shows me the HTML behind it. As you can see, it is just a fragment of an HTML document, which is cool because it has everything that you need for example, for copy and pasting it into a content management system. So if you go with WordPress and you write collaboratively, for example, in Hatchdoc, you want to put this into WordPress. You can download it, convert it with Pandoc, and paste it over to WordPress as you just take this HTML fragment. But as we saw, this is not a very nicely formatted HTML document. And in the source code, in the markup, you see there is no head in the document where you can, for example, refer to a style sheet, a CSS style sheet. So therefore, we need to add a new command to Pandoc's conversion. Close this one, and I put this to the side here. And I go back to my console and make this bigger for you. I recycle the command with the arrow up key on my keyboard. So this is the history that is stored in the terminal or in Git Bash. That means that whenever you type a command, it is recorded in a file called history. And if you want to recycle a complex command that you don't want to type again, you just use the arrow key up and you get back to this old command that you just have typed before. So let's add -- stand alone here. Okay, this gives us a warning, but let's see, did something work? We go with the warning, we deal with the warning later on. Let's see here, I hit F5 or Control R, or you can click on this arrow link here, and well, this looks much better. So I have to have a look at the documents markup, and you see there is everything that is needed for a valid HTML document. This comes from adding the parameter -- standalone. So this is what we have, which is great. So we came with a markdown document and we converted this to an HTML document. Well, this is nice. So, well, how do I know that? How do I know why I have to add -- standalone and other parameters here? I know this from the user guide on the Pandoc page. So if you go to pandoc.org, you can click on Documentation Users Guide, and you will find everything that you need to work with this tool, well, for hours. It has so many options and so many possibilities. And this Pandoc 101 is made for you to just dive in the most important things at first. And one thing that is worth making a video about this, because you will find some other videos on Pandoc on YouTube and otherwise elsewhere in the web, is that there's a relatively new feature. It's called default files. This is where I go to here. And it means that you can have a file where all the options can be listed that you want to have when you convert a document, a source document to a target document. And you can reuse this defaults file for variants of this process. So if you do this, a conversion of a journal article from Markdown to HTML or a PDF today, you can do the same thing tomorrow with another article and can store all the parameters that you need to achieve the same result in this defaults file. And this is what I want to cover in this video, because this is really nice. So instead of putting all the commands in a row on the command line, as I've showed with just the short example, you can build up a file which can have the name that you want and put everything in this. So let's go with that. Instead of saying this here, well, I have to make it a little bit smaller. Instead of going with this one, we can say Pandoc -- defaults is test. So if I go with this, it says, well, this does not exist. Well, of course, we haven't set up this document, this file yet, this configuration file yet, so we have to do this. And this is what I'm going to do now. And I do this in a text editor that you can have on your computer too. So for example, Notepad on Windows or Notepad++, or for example, VS Codium or TextEdit on Mac. So a very simple text editor. So let's say we go with this one here, and I do something on the command line. I do this, it's called test.yaml. This YAML file is the configuration file that we need in this process of conversion. This is what I want to set up here, and I want to embed all the commands that are necessary for first good examples and results. So I add this to this folder structure. So we have test.yaml, and as you can see, it's also here. And now I can open this up in the mousepad. So this is where you have it. So it's test YAML. And now I have a look at the reference here to see what can I do with this YAML file. For example, I can copy over a line like this one, but I say the source document, the input file, is testdocument.md. And second thing, I want to have an output file. Let's see what that is. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so you go with this one, but I call it testdocument.html. This is all for now. So let's see what this gives us. Save it, switch to the command line, and now we go with Pandoc --defaults equals test. You don't need to add the extension .yaml. It works as it is, as you can see it here. Okay, let's see what came out of that one. Aha, works. But it's the fragment of the HTML document again, so we have to add another parameter that we know from before. And this is what I do now. So as this is always the same command here, like this one, I will shrink this one to the corner so that we have the whole iteration cycles here. So I work in this editor, add a new configuration option, then I regenerate the file, convert from source to target, and then I refresh the browser on the right-hand side to see the results. So this is what we do now. So and now let's see, where do we have the option to generate a standalone file? Let's see where that is. So not so fast. There it is. So instead of this option on the command line, you go with standalone true in the configuration file. So let's do this. Standalone true, save it, go again with the conversion, refresh, doesn't work. Why? What's wrong here? Standalone true. So anything wrong with my files? Test document.md, test document HTML, defaults tests. Okay, just did it again. So what's wrong here? Test document.html. Okay, I see. I haven't saved it. Yeah, that was my fault. Okay, I put it down here and I didn't save it. Well, I took this mousepad editor just for simplicity, but usually I use VS Codium, which has an autosave mode, and I'm not used to hitting Control S. This is what happened. Okay, so there comes the warning again. Let's see if this has worked. Okay, great. So it was me not saving the file. This is what happened. And now, what else can we add? Let's have a look at this warning. It says this document format requires a non-empty title element, meaning that there has to be something in the title element. And it defaults to test document as the title. So this is what we can see here. Test document is the title that Pandoc gave the HTML document. And if we have a look at the markup, we can see here the title tag is filled with the file name test document. Now, this brings us to the next point, to the point of adding metadata. So let's have a look how we can do this one. For example, there is, let's have a look here. So we can add metadata like the title with this way of writing it. So, and this brings us to a very important thing. In the YAML format, you have to be very strict with tabs or spaces at the beginning of some lines. So it is absolutely necessary here to have the two spaces here, or two blanks here, or hitting the tab key on your keyboard, because when YAML gets interpreted, it means that the metadata has a list of keys and values here, and in order to tell the parser that this is the list that belongs to this attribute here, you have to be very strict with filling in the blanks or indenting the lines at the beginning. So I did this, but this is going to be the title, and it's called my test document. All right, save it. Go back to the command line, recycle the command, hitting enter, going back to the browser, hitting refresh, and well, it has a real title on top. And because it has a title, it's not just filled in the title tag in the head, which just is visible here in the tab. It also gets a place in the HTML in the body, and this is why we can see this here. So this is how you can add metadata. Second thing is you can combine various documents here. That means that you can have a list of input files. And if you go back to the reference, you can see this right on top. It's possible to have one file, as we did in this demonstration up to now, but it's possible to have a list of files written in this way, and they all get combined to one target document, one after the other. So if we go here and say test document is the first in the list, we have to do this here, two blanks, a dash, and a blank, and then test document.md. So let's see if this works. It's also one file, but let's have a look at this one. Convert it again, go back to the browser, same result. Now we need another file that we can, for example, add to the document at the end. So let's create this one. I go here and I say new document, empty document. It's called, let's say it, appendix.md. And I open this up in the mousepad 2. And here we go with a markdown headline, which is called appendix. And then it says lorem ipsum and so on. I save it, go back to the configuration and add it to the list. Appendix.md, save it, convert it, and have a look. And as you can see, document is the same as before, but the appendix has been added at the end because of the order that is in the list here. Okay, so this is what we can have in this YAML file. I will make this a little bit bigger to go back to the important parts here. So, because of the great possibilities the YAML format has, not everything is very intuitive here. So as you can see, this list of the documents here starts with this dash at the beginning, Here we have also a list. It doesn't start with a dash. So if this is not logical for you, it's okay with me. For me, it's just logical when I look into the reference of YAML files, but it's nothing that I want to explain here. The important thing is that if you have something like a list or something that belongs to an attribute above, you have to be very precise with the numbers of blanks at the beginning. So it's, in this case, it's 2, could be 4, but then consequently 4 in the whole list, then it will work. Otherwise you get a warning or an error and it won't work at all. So this is what we have now. Well, now to something that is fun and perhaps important for using Pandoc for more serious stuff. That means, for example, for the conversion of scientific or scholarly writing. I have a video on YouTube that I will add to the list at the end of the show notes that you can have a look at. It's a long video on how I set up my personal writing environment. Of course, Pandoc is involved, Zotero is involved, program for the administration of all your references that you have. It's great together. Have a look at this video if you want to know more. I just want to point out one thing that might be interesting at this point here. So let's have something like a citation and something like references at the end. So, and what I want to do now is, first of all, go back to this reference here and have a look at the point in this documentation. Is called citations. Citations works when you use a filter which is built in Pandoc, and it's called citeproc, meaning like the processing of citations. So if you copy this over or use this in your command line, you can say the same thing as before, and then you say use citeproc. Well, nothing special happens. You can see this here, nothing special happens. But if we had citations and a bibliography related to this citation in the document, we have an effect. And let's build this. So I go back to this website and you can read it for yourself. I just scroll down to the part that I want to copy and paste. So for example, this references here is something that I can put into the document. So I take this whole thing here, and it is a list of references. You can see here it starts with the attribute references, and then there comes a list of references. This is one single reference with all the data belonging to this reference. And you can have more of them. So the second one would start below the part here, and it would could also start with type, article, journal, and so on. So this is one reference, and I take the whole thing with the dashes at the beginning and the dots at the end and copy this over to our Markdown document. I have to open this up because we don't put this into the configuration file. We put it into the document that I need to open up here. So we open up the Markdown document, testdocument.md, open it up with the same editor, and then we put it at the beginning of the whole thing. And this is called the YAML front matter. So it comes at the beginning and is introduced with this line, and the outro of this part is the 3 dots here, or 3 dashes, also possible. Of course, there are more sophisticated ways of storing references in files, for example, but this is not what I want to show here because it's called Pandoc 101. I just want to point you to the potentials of the whole thing to inspire you to work on that one and to understand what a command line tool like Pandoc is capable of. So I save this here and want to start over again with the conversion. Well, let's see if something happened. Go back to my test document. Nothing happened because I only have the reference, but I need some citation here. And well, let's place it somewhere. I go back to this text here And for example, I put it here in between this here. So, and it's this way that you have to write it. I show you in the reference where this is explained, and you need to put in the ID that this citation refers to. So if you go with this one here and save it and convert it and refresh the browser, you can see this is the citation of Watson and Crick, 1953. Great. So what is at the end? Well, here it says what was put down in this YAML structure for the reference. And it has a citation style of a certain kind. And next step, I want to change this with you. So again, what did we do to have citations? First of all, you add this parameter to the command line in order to process citations. Second thing is you need at least one reference to try this out. This one was copied over from the documentation. Looks like that. And second thing is you have to have at least one citation of this reference in the document. So therefore I opened the test document and put in this way of citing the ID in the list of references. So this is how it belongs together. So let's have a look at where do they say this on this page so that you can look it up. If you scroll down and perhaps read the whole thing, you will find finally a very, I think, a very hidden way of describing how the whole thing works, like this here. So this is what it did. This is what I did. But you can also see in-text citations. It's this one here. And I'd suggest that you just experiment with this one because I don't want to go any further here. And you can also have this in footnotes and in some places elsewhere in the document, and it works great. So this is what we did. And this is what came out of it. Let's improvise something here because this doesn't go to the appendix. We want to have a new line at the end of the document. Of course, the references do not come after the appendix, I guess. Should be other way around. Well, depends. Let's convert it again and see what it does. Well, yeah, this is what you can see. It doesn't work this way. So the appendix is before the references here. So if you wanna have an appendix, you have to go another way. This was just an improvisation. That means that the bibliography will always be added at the end of all the list of the files. So please, this means you have to do some work to have a real appendix at the end of the document. So therefore, I would just leave it out for the moment. I just kill this line here to have an effect that satisfies us. Well, for Pandoc 101, this is my final result for the references here. Oh no, wait. Let's deal with citation styles. This is fun too. So if we go here, we can see that we can have citation styles. Well, you can hear so relevant data fields. Well, I know, specifying a citation style. And this citation style is something that you will find on the web. So for example, you go to this website. It's called www.zotero.org/styles. You can search for various citation styles. And it's called citation style language. It's an XML format that the citation style is marked up with. And you can, for example, search for a certain style that you need. So let's say we take this style, ISO 690. For example, in English, And if you hover over these links here, you will see an example of the citation and the bibliography. And if this is what you want, you use this one and save it in the same folder, for example, where the text file is and the configuration file. You see, here it is. And I copy over the name of the file to use it in my document, in the configuration document. And how do we do this? I will show you in the reference. So let's go back to the defaults file section where everything is listed that we need. And if I scroll down here, it says here it is. So if you put it --CSL and the name of the CSL file on the command line, you can do the same thing as a metadata field. And this is what I'm going to do now here, because this is what I want. CSL, and then I paste this style here. Save it. Let's have a look at the formatting and the styling again of this reference. And now I convert it again. Refresh here. And you can see it looks different. And if I scroll up, also the citation has changed. Well, this is all for now. Pandoc 101. To sum it up, Pandoc converts various files from one format to the other. I go to the first page here again to show you this graphic here. And it shows you from, well, I just shrink this a little. Well, it shows you what format can go in, input file formats, and what formats can come out, output file formats on the right-hand side. This is what Pandoc can do. Very powerful. And in order to bring this to a professional level, you will need a lot of configuration parameters here. The configuration parameters can be put on the command line, but the command line is nothing that you can save in a way or recycle. Of course, you can write a script where you put down the command line with all the parameters, but a much better way, I suggest, is have a reusable configuration file like this one, where everything from metadata and reader and writer configuration can be stored, which can be reused, as I showed in this short demonstration. You can have a list of input files. I just have one here, but you can have hundreds. You can have one output file at a time. So that means this converts to HTML. You can have various parameters, for example, for HTML, because standalone is necessary for HTML to say, is it a fragment or is it a complete document with everything needed for a valid HTML document? And as another example, for the syntax of YAML, we have seen this metadata field where we have the title and the CSL file name, which refers to a certain citation style that has been used in this video. So this is what you can do with it. Hopefully you enjoy the whole thing. And well, come back next time. Let's see what we do then. But yeah, give it a try. Goodbye.